Gun violence is unique. It's uniquely American. It is an American problem. It wasn't long ago where we had 300 million weapons on the streets already. Now we have 400 million. The number of people in this country who died of gun violence last year was over 40,000. This year it's probably going to go up. My daughter, Jaime, who's actually in the picture behind me, who's one of my two children, she was killed in the Parkland school shooting. And ever since her murder, I have been on a mission to do something about gun violence in this country. If you just like me simply love our democracy, this election is important. If, for like me, you value civility, decency, and honesty, this election is important. But if, like me, you want to save lives and do something about gun violence, this election is critical. Gun safety legislation is passing in cities across the country, in states across the country, and it's passed the House of Representatives. And not only has it passed in a bipartisan way with Republican votes. What's broken now is the Senate. Mitch McConnell won't even bring it up. Heck, he won't even let them talk about it. He embraces the name Grim Reaper because he is famous for allowing the Senate to become a graveyard. Let's start off with the one that we know has, the broad support of America, 90% support. Background checks. The fact that this Senate can't even do that is pathetic, but we'll start there. And I think that should be extended to ammunition because you currently have 400 million weapons on the street already, and prohibited purchasers can walk into the store now and buy the bullets because there's no requirement for a background check on bullets. One area where I was slow to come along, but I'm there now, is the banning of assault weapons. I wanted to just be pragmatic and get other laws passed. But then these groups started to show up at rallies with AR-15s strapped around their shoulder. And all of a sudden, it was no longer about the old Second Amendment arguments. These folks were using these weapons as armed intimidation. And armed intimidation then led to armed shooting in the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. They've made the argument themselves for why those weapons should be banned. Gun violence is not partisan. If a bullet hits you, it doesn't know if you're Republican or Democrat, but the response in this current Senate is very partisan. And this current president has chosen to be a megaphone for the NRA. My daughter and the other victims of gun violence, as the NRA is concerned, are nothing more than a cost of doing business. If the current occupant comes back, the Senate doesn't flip, not only does legislation not happen, you'll have more Kavanaughs on the Supreme Court, and the gun safety argument will come to a complete end. When I was asked to deliver the nomination for Biden, I was humbled, but yeah, listen, it was a moment that honestly I wish I never had. I wish I never was asked. I would go back to February 14th, 2018 at 2 p.m. in a New York minute. Just a sappy dad of two kids worrying about their everyday. But I don't have that option anymore. He is such a decent, compassionate, empathetic person. And I got to know him when he wasn't running for anything. He reached out because that's just who he is. But he wanted to specifically talk to me about grief and what going forward looks like and what it was like for him. He spoke to me about my family and my marriage and how people grieve differently. And when you're around those you love, it's really important to understand that and to have a plan for going through the grieving process differently, but supportive of one another. The majority of Americans that I've met just have compassion in their heart. They're decent, they're civil. Some of the insane behavior that we are seeing right now, that is not the majority, it is not the norm. The majority of gun owners believe in gun safety because they also understand they could be walking down a street and become the victim of a random act of violence. I meet people across this country who have suffered the worst kind of loss, but who are doing something about it, who have decided that they're going to be a part of saving somebody else's life because the person they love was killed. That's the position I find myself in. What the gun lobby is struggling with now is you have people like me or the kids or other victims of gun violence who used to back off when they would push back, and we don't anymore. It's like, you know what, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but we can use our voice too, and we're going to. I live with this guilt over never having done anything about this before it was my preventable tragedy. I live with guilt over not using my voice before it was my kid. Sometimes in life, people go through hard moments. It's not always loss. Sometimes other things can create real hard moments. And having empathy is a really critical tool to being helpful to someone else. This country right now is going through a horrible moment with this pandemic. We're going to be 200,000 people dead soon. These people were sick alone, they died alone, and in many cases, they're buried alone. And these families are suffering. Just like us, they're human beings. They go through the same highs and lows. And I can honestly tell you, if you open yourself up to the love and compassion from others, there's a lot of it out there to receive.